T1D news from across the world. I'm joined today by my friend and fellow Type 1 diabetic, Joncel Gurkan, who is going to be helping me cover some of the biggest stories happening in the Type 1 world today. Just going to briefly run through what we're going to be touching on. So Abbott, the pharmaceutical company.
Could you say it again, please?
Sorry, that's Siri jumping into the broadcast. Abbott, the pharmaceutical company, has announced the Freestyle Libre 3, but where are we at with the Freestyle Libre 2? We are going to be talking about the Love Island star who's been sharing his diagnosis story, and the singer who's making sure people don't go without their insulin in the States. So all of that coming up today. This is something that I'm going to be doing from now on my HAPS account, touching on the month's news, considering people with type 1 diabetes. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you follow along. But before we get into that first story, Joncel, how are you getting on, my friend?
All good, my friend. It's been, like I say, tricky for all of us with COVID happening. Obviously, a lot of negativity out there. Just trying to keep my head above water, trying to give that inspiration to people that, come on, man, it's fine. Come on, you're living, you're alive. We just got to go forward with a smile on our face. I know it's hard, but I've always said this: like attracts like. But it's positivity. Boom.
Absolutely. So, some latest news and also a bit of positivity in tonight's program. Joncel, you are currently in Tier 2 lockdown, aren't you, in London?
Well, I'm not in London. I'm in the Midlands, but I'm very close to Tier 2. So
Okay.
I'm near to Birmingham. Which is Tier 2 now, and a lot of stressed people, obviously, with not knowing what's going on. Boris is dropping his bombshells every day. No one knows what's going on. It's tricky. I try and avoid it as best I can. I just don't want to listen to it. I know I should, but I just think, do you know what?
Well, you know what? As long as you're staying within the rules, then I think that's the best all of us can do. And I think you're right. Not be too sort of involved in the reporting if that's getting you down. Hopefully, some of the news that we'll bring you today will put a smile on your face. Hello to the people who are just joining us: Pablo in Los Angeles and Shivani, who is watching from Brooklyn. Hello to you. First up, then we're going to be talking about Marcel Somerville, who has revealed that he was just hours away from death before he was rushed to hospital with undiagnosed type 1 diabetes. Now, Marcel was a Love Island cast member in 2017, and in June he went into hospital with classic DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis symptoms such as vomiting. He kept going in and out of consciousness. He was very, very thirsty. All symptoms that I suffered when I had the same condition, and that essentially is what happens when the blood sugar becomes very acidic in the body, when there's too much sugar in it, essentially. So Marcel's been speaking in the press quite openly about his diabetes, hoping to get the message out there so people like me who got very ill because of DKA won't get so ill, because they'll be able to notice the symptoms. If you're wondering, Marcel is doing much better now, and he's expecting his first child in January. But that's only a good thing, isn't it, Joncel? People have sort of his profile coming out in the press and talking about the condition.
I think it's amazing because I toured with Marcel when I was in the pop business.
Oh,
he was
really?
he was in Blazing Squad, and obviously I didn't keep it quiet. I always said I was a type 1 diabetic, which is fine. But people never understood the whole ins and outs. And because social media is now built up massively, people are now beginning to understand more so about health conditions, what happens, how you feel. And you know what? I love the fact that Marcel has come out about it. I mean, I'm type 1 diabetic. Nick Jonas doing the same. Listen, the more that people talk about it, the more that we're going to understand about health conditions that people live with. So I'm for it, man. And I think I feel for him. I feel for him because, like I said, I was diagnosed when I was very young. So it would hit me harder if I was diagnosed later on in life. But like I say, fair play to the guy. He's a lovely chap. He's got his head screwed on in the correct manner. And I think, you know what, he's going to help people, especially the younger generation who get diagnosed. So, I mean, it's a good thing, but fair play to him for coming out and talking about it. Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I got knocked in the ribs very badly when I was 11 years old, and my mum's a type 1, so I knew about diabetes anyway. But I got knocked in the ribs, and all of a sudden, since I got that knock, it brought out more symptoms. So I probably had diabetes within my system. It might have come out later on, but a knock, a shock can bring things out. It's knocking my ribs, knocked me for 6. I thought, I've broken my rib. I'm done. And all of a sudden, over the next month or so, I lost weight. I was tired. I was peeing at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was a state. No one knew. They're like, hey, he's losing weight. No one understands. No one gets it. This thing, someone isn't eating, they lost weight. And this is the thing. I was grateful because my mum, she came in, she checked my blood sugar. She came over to stay for the weekend, and my blood sugar was through the roof. And straight away, she knew he's diabetic. But no one knows it. And the symptoms are the classics. Like I say, tiredness, you're peeing at irregular intervals, you're tired, you're drained, you're lazy. It happened to me. But if it wasn't for my mum, who knows what would have happened. So it's I think it's great now because I think that people need to recognize symptoms. And I know Diabetes UK, JDRF are doing their very best to make sure people check if they get any sort of like slight symptoms with thirst and losing weight. So no, we're progressing, I think, in a positive manner.
Absolutely. And just moving on from celebrity type 1 diabetes, the UK now has the largest number of commercial pilots in the world living with type 1 diabetes or insulin treated type 2 diabetes. Now, we know this because of a study which looked at 49 pilots with the two conditions tracked over the course of more than 22,000 flying hours. And during that time, almost 98% of the pilots, wait for it, 38,621 blood glucose measurements fell between the safe range, which pilots are allowed to fly in between 5 and 15 mmol per litre. The researchers also found no evidence that the pilots were running their glucose levels high to avoid hypoglycemia, which would put them at risk of later complications. Now, in 2012, the UK became just the second country worldwide after Canada to actually allow pilots with type 1 diabetes to fly commercial aircrafts. Now, in order to do that, the pilots must follow a routine of finger prick blood glucose tests no more than 2 hours before reporting for their duty, within 30 minutes before takeoff, and every hour while flying, and no more than 30 minutes before landing. And of course, if any of those blood glucose readings measure higher or lower than the safe ranges, then the co-pilot must take over. But that's quite an achievement because even until recently, I mean, I was diagnosed after 2012, so I was diagnosed in 2015, and I still didn't know that I was able to be a pilot if I so wanted. But it's great that eventually people are now having these opportunities opened up to them, because that there are still certain professions that I think we are probably blocked from entering. But with the state of technology now and how well diabetes, type 1 diabetes and insulin controlled type 2 diabetes can be looked after, why can't we take part in these professions if we can prove that we can do it safely?
I totally agree. I mean, when I was diagnosed, it was a matter of you can't fly planes, you can't be a police officer. taken away from me. It's because I'm diabetic. No, it's for the best cause. It's for the best direction. And since I've been on a CGM with Dexcom, my blood sugars, they're still low, but I'm notified. But still, I wouldn't feel trustworthy driving a car knowing that I could still go into a hypoglycemic attack, a hypoglycemic situation. So it's not only is it for my own cause, it's for other people. It's like drink driving. People will go out, well, I'm fine, I've only had 2 pints. Yeah, but you're over the limit and you kill someone. It's not worth it. You've always got
exactly. And we'll chat a bit more about the technology which John mentioned there, and some more news about that in a bit. But yeah, it just goes to show that with the right attention, anything is possible and achievable if it's done in the right way. Obviously, there are some safety concerns. I mean, I'm not sure how many passengers would like to know that their pilot is type 1 diabetic and at any moment could suffer a hypo episode of hypoglycemia or need outside assistance. But there we go. I mean, if that study proves that pilots are doing it successfully. Hello to Pauline Zane, who is watching, and Drew Shepherd too. Hello, guys. Hello, if you're just joining. Myself and John Sell are going through the latest news concerning people with type 1 diabetes here on HAPS. We are live for the next half an hour or so with more stories on the way, including another celebrity. So Nick Jonas, probably the world's most famous type 1 diabetic. He is doing something rather useful for people in the States who often struggle to get insulin. Now, the price tag of insulin in the US continues to climb. And Nick Jonas, who is a type 1 diabetic himself, has announced a new initiative that will make it easier for those to get the insulin that they need. Now, himself, along with his diabetes advocacy group called Beyond Type 1, have launched getinsulin.org, which is a new search engine tailored to help those who are struggling to get their insulin supply. Now, Nick got this up and running just in time for the pandemic, and he was helped by the NAACP and Feeding America, as well as the ADA and JDRF. Now, he hopes this initiative will not only help people get their hands on insulin, but serve as a wake-up call to political leaders in the States to ensure people can get the insulin that they need, because the current healthcare system is, in Nick's opinion, failing people with insulin-treated diabetes. And, I would agree with that. I think, John Sell, we live in a world where we don't have to worry about our insulin supply, but our friends across the Atlantic, it's a very different situation for them. And I often try and put myself in their shoes. And I think, looking at how much money I've earned, because I'm generally freelance, how much money I've earned this month, could I afford a vial of insulin? And nine times out of 10, depending on how hard I've worked that month, it's no. And that is a very scary thing to deal with.
I mean, I'll be brutally honest. I would be dead. I'm an actor. We deal with out of work situations all the time. When we work, we're great. And it's hard. And I've always said that the NHS in the UK has looked after me massively. And if it wasn't for them, I would be, and I hate saying it, this isn't negative, but I would be dead. And having situations that I've gone through in another country, in Turkey, where I know the diabetic healthcare isn't good at all. It's tough, and I see many American guys who I'm friends with who suffer, and it breaks my heart. I mean, I don't know how I would cope with what's going on. Nick Jonas is doing a great job. He's focusing on the positives. But I'll say this, it's very easy for him to say that because he's a millionaire. And he's got his groups, he's got his backing, and fair play, but he is diabetic, so he's bigging it up. It's just sad. It's just sad that insulin should be available for everybody, and people are dying because they're rationing in Turkey, in Syria, what if you're type 1 diabetic in Afghanistan? How do you think they're going to survive? They're not. So in the UK, you're incredibly lucky. Other parts of the world, it's sad, and it does honestly break my heart. Yeah. But without a shadow of a doubt, I would love. Do you know what? I hate it. I had someone on Instagram about a year ago message me, and his pump. He was from Germany, and he couldn't afford his pump. His pump had broken. He couldn't afford it. I was on the same pump, the AccuCheck, and can you send it to me if you don't need it when you get your upgrade? And I hated talking about it because in England you can get an upgrade after a certain amount of time, and other countries they're not as lucky. And the charge and the cost of these goods. And the problem is that I hate the way these pharmaceutical companies, and I'll say it, like your Dexcoms and your Freestyle, as much as they're amazing, your AccuChecks, they charge so much money. It's more of a business than it is looking after a person's well-being. And I hate it. It's about money. And unfortunately, money is what businesses look at, not people's life and not how people live. And it did break my heart, and I know how hard it is for people. And like I will always keep saying, in England, we are incredibly, incredibly, incredibly lucky with the treatment that we have. This house was a lovely. This gentleman here, I used to have a bar job, and he looked after me. He saw me have many hyperglycemic affairs, and he looked after me. So I have the support from the non-diabetic community, and it's brilliant because, like I say, I've been judged, I've been mocked many a time, but the good people, they will always stand by your side. So much love, much love.
For this. I will be marking my fifth anniversary next week.
Good man.
I'm really confused about the date because I was so out of it when I went into hospital. But it's around the end of October, so I think I'm going to bake myself a cake.
Celebrate now. Celebrate now. Just do it.
That's it. Okay, we're celebrating my fifth anniversary here. Well, welcome to everyone who's just joining too. Pablo de la Hoya says yes. Good stuff. Thanks, Pablo, for joining along and commenting. The comment box is there to be used, guys. Please do. Congrats, says Pablo. Thanks, Pablo. Now, what probably is what everybody wants to know, our meatiest topic of tonight's broadcast is the news on what's going on with the next generations of the Freestyle Libra. Now, if you don't know what one of them is, I use it, John Sell doesn't. It's in the sort of bottom square of the broadcast right now, a little demonstration on what it is. It is a flash sensor, flash glucose monitor, not a CGM. It's you still have to scan it, but it doesn't need a blood finger prick test. Essentially, it's a device which takes sort of regular readings of my blood sugar, and then when I tap my phone to it, it will give me a reading. Sort of not a very good explanation, but people in the UK are supposed to have access to the Freestyle Libra 1, which is what I use. John Sell, you're in a slightly different situation because of your dealings with hypos. Is your CGM funded on the NHS?
It is indeed. If it wasn't for me getting funded, I say this all the time. I don't think I'd be here to talk to you now. I'd probably be dead, which isn't the most positive thing to say, but it saved my life massively. I've been on the Dexcom for 2 years, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been alerted. And do you know what? It is a saving grace. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very funny about CGMs. I mean, as a machine, they're amazing. They save your life. But as companies go, I am not a fan because for me, this is my opinion. People don't have to agree. They're into making money. They don't care about someone's health. It's about money. It's about cost, and it disgusts me. Dexcom is an amazing machine. Don't get me wrong; it's brilliant. But I don't like the way that it's not affordable. How can you afford that? There's children out there. There's adults out there who have type 1. They can't afford this kind of equipment, and yet you're charging that much money. Rubbish. It's a business to them. It's like it's like with freestyle. Freestyle is amazing and it's great and it's more affordable. It's still expensive. And for me, I've got a thing about, you can talk about any health condition, is the fact that companies are more obsessed with making money than they are the health condition that they're trying to look after. And that's just my opinion with it. Yeah. I, I think it's just the way the marketing is done, the promotion. It's just it's all very false and fake. It's not real. And for me, there's a realistic side to living with type 1, and people try and hide the harsh realities of what we go through and what we live with. I always speak the truth, and I always try and put positive spin on it. But for me, I've dealt with Dexcom and their higher people, and for me, it's a business. I'm diabetic. I live with this condition. I've had it for 32 years. I know more than what they know in terms of how I feel we should be treated as a community. But I'll give them credit. Their devices, and like I say, the freestyle, same thing. Absolutely amazing. Because they change lives, they save lives. It's just a shame that, unfortunately, this is the way the world we live in. Money and finance come into it, and greed. But as much as there's a positive, there's a negative, there is a positive. They save lives, man. CGMs. If it wasn't for those bad boys, we'd be in deep trouble.
Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, it's going to be a long time until people get their hands on the Freestyle Libre 3. We don't even have. Oh, I think you might be able to get it privately. Oh no, I don't think you can in Europe yet. It's launched. The Freestyle Libre 2 has in the States. It's been approved for use recently in the States. But still, regardless of this new technology, it's quite low, the amount of people who are able to get their hands on the Freestyle Libre 1 system on the NHS. Of course, you can get it if you self-fund, but according to JDRF, as of February 2020, just under 28% of people in England with type 1 diabetes meeting the criteria had received the device. So still a very low proportion of people in receipt of this technology. I have been very lucky with my healthcare team. I'm in North Somerset, which is a quite small catchment area in terms of type 1 diabetics, so it's quite easy to get your hands on stuff, but other areas of the country where it's higher populated, there's a lot more people needing to access the services that the NHS provide. It's harder to get your hands on this sort of stuff, especially for adults, unless you're quite a severe case like John Sell. But let's just talk through the Freestyle Libre 2, because that's the thing that we're likely to see in our pockets and on our arms in the foreseeable future. So what that does add, apart from the convenience of a scanned blood glucose reading, is a high or low alarm. So you can customize it to bleep or give you an alarm when your blood sugar goes below a certain point or above a certain point. And as Johnson will tell you, after living with his Dexcom for years, it must take a huge weight off your shoulder sometimes, but then also maybe can be quite annoying, especially when it's in the middle of the night.
It's do you know what? I've been annoyed by my Dexcom alarm many a time. You're having a hypo, it's beeping, it's warned you. You're like, oh, brilliant, this is great. You've had your sugar, you're waiting, and suddenly you're like, my blood sugar is going to raise back up. Beep, beep, beep. I've had sugar. God, yeah. It gets like that, but you've got to look at the positive spin on it. Come on, man. You've been warned. You've had sugar. What's a little beep? It's better to be beeped and annoyed rather than be in a coma. So there's a way to look at it. And yeah, those alarms are annoying. They get on everyone's boobs. But I tell you what, if it wasn't for the alarms, like I say, I'd be in deep doo-doo. This year I've had two major ones which have been very, very bad, where the alarm, I stupidly turned it down and I've had to have help. And that's because I got annoyed by it. But the thing is, always trust technology. Always trust technology. Don't turn it down. If people don't like it, let them deal with it. Who cares? It's your life that's important. You come first. Everyone else can just follow in suit. Do you know what? Look after yourself. You're number one. You are the number one priority. So never turn your alarm down. And if it annoys you, let it annoy other people. Sod it.
Says, hello, John Sell. Hi, John Sell. And Trevor Brown is asking how much these devices costed. Well, thankfully, John Sell was talking for long enough there for me to do a bit of Googling and find out. So a Freestyle Libre sensor, which lasts 14 days. So I use 2 of these a month. If they stay on for the whole month, costs £48.29 plus VAT. That's for people in the UK. A starter pack, including 2 sensors and the reader, is £133.29. So you can see this money stacks up. It gets very expensive very quickly. And then Dexcom, quite difficult to actually sort of zero down on how much the Dexcom will absolutely cost you over a year. But the starter pack here costs £194. And then actually I've got a number here, roughly £1,900 per year. So, I mean, my dad said something to me. He said, okay, it might be expensive, but it's your health. And, I sort of get that. But, my dad's my dad and has worked for, decades, and I'm sure has some money saved up. So he has a slightly different perspective on money as me. But I'm sure if I had all the money in the world, I would absolutely be buying everything that could potentially improve my health. Molly Scorum says, just popped in to support. It's been very informative. Awesome that you are both educating and sending a positive message. Lovely comment there. So John Sell, if the Freestyle Libre comes to market very soon, do you think that your healthcare team might try and convince you to move over to it and leave the Dexcom behind? Because it'll eventually be doing the same thing.
I would love to leave Dexcom behind. Yeah. And I'm not saying that. It's just I have very high opinions of how businesses are run and the intentions that are set out for type 1s. For me, Dexcom care, like I keep saying this, care more about money. I don't like them. I never will. I think this is my opinion. I think they're very obsessed with making money. I know people are. For me, it's about a diabetic and looking after their needs. Freestyle, the way they advertise, the way they market, they for me are the people's champion of CGMs. Now, if the Freestyle Libre 2 can do what the Freestyle Libre 3 does in terms of continuous glucose monitoring, checking that you have a hypos, letting an alarm go off, I would move hands down the Freestyle, because I feel the way that they deal with things is more to a Type 1's needs. Dexcom for me is, like I say, it's like the Hollywood version of like, we are the best. You might be the best, but the way you defend things and do things, for me, isn't in the Type 1's best spirits. And I've got better experience than most people that have actually developed Dexcom, because I've been doing it for 32 years. So for me, that's how I stand, and that's my opinion on it.
Well, if you live with type 1 diabetes, you use this technology, what are your opinions? Obviously, Johnson has quite a strong opinion on the intentions of pharmaceutical companies. Although he loves his Dexcom, might not love the people that make it. So what are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments box below. But I, for one, am very excited to see a new version of the Freestyle Libre. Not too sure if I'll get it anytime soon, because if the rest of the country, a massive proportion of people who need this device still don't have it, then I don't think I'd feel good about getting a newer version when still so many people are doing without. Now, just before we head off, there's still time to get your comments and questions in if you so wanted to. Just want to give you a heads up about an event on Monday, so next Monday. Is that the 28th? Is that the 28th, next Monday?
I think, is it?
No, it's not. It's the 26th. 26th of October, I'm going to be hosting an event for Diabetes UK, where I will be having a live discussion over Zoom with Professor Sattar, who is based at the University of Glasgow. Now, he is at the forefront of research looking at how coronavirus is affecting people living with type 1 diabetes. He's going to be taking us through what we know and what we don't know, and he'll update us on research that he is leading on, thanks to some funding from Diabetes UK. So, as we approach we're in a second wave, as we approach quite a scary, for some, winter, you'll be able to ask questions too. So hopefully you'll have come away with a more nuanced understanding on what precautions you need to take, what you need to be doing, and what really the risk factors are for people living with diabetes type 1, type 2, and the rest of the types. And like I mentioned, you'll be able to put your questions to Professor Sattar through me. So I'm guessing that you'll be typing them down into the Zoom chat, and I'll be reading them out to him. So don't worry about public speaking. You won't have to do any of that. Now, it's a completely free event. All you need to do is register on the Diabetes UK website, and after that you'll receive a Zoom confirmation email. So do make sure you are checking your inbox. But it's important to note that this will be recorded and made publicly available later on. So you might appear, if your video or audio is switched on, for potentially the Q&A session, if we choose to do it, if we can technically do it by getting you to ask the professor yourself. But that's always good to know, though, that it's going to be recorded and you can watch it on the Diabetes UK website after the fact. So, John Sal, just to wrap things up then, the news in the type 1 world for this month, we'll be doing this quite regularly here on my HAPS channel. What are your thoughts on the news that we've been talking about today? I
think amazing. Marcel's come forward. He's bigging it up. He's not shying away from it.
I can't believe you know him. I can't believe that. What a coincidence.
Well, no. I mean, I taught him Blazing Squad back in the day, and they were little youths back in the day, but legends. And do you know what? Fair play to him. People find it very hard to talk about health conditions when they're diagnosed with them, and he's come forward, and it takes bravery. So I'm all for that. Nick Jonas, fight all the way, man, because I see it all the time online with insulin. People can't afford it. They're rationing. I hate it, and it saddens me because I have insulin. Others don't. We should all have it. It's a free right. We need it. We deserve it. And as for the Freestyle Libre, I think, technology is moving on massively. I just hope, listen, I'm thinking ridiculous here. I just hope eventually people look at it for a way of helping people rather than looking at making money. And it goes with cancer treatments, it goes with asthmatic treatments, it goes with many things. But for me, freestyle has changed so many people's lives, and it's putting a smile on people's faces, especially young children. So for me, CGMs are the way forward. I just want businesses to stop looking at it from like the money making point of view and look at it in terms of saving lives.
Well, there you go, fellow companies. You've heard John Sell's words. I'm half expecting someone from Dexcom to knock at my door in the next 15 minutes or so.
Let them.
But there we go. That is free speech, and that's what you just saw happening here on Haps, the network of now, a place where you can get news from all over the world right on your mobile phone or indeed your computer too. And you can be part of the conversation. You can be sharing your own news from wherever you are. Just head on to haps.tv and you could be going live in a few minutes if you've got a story to tell. But do check out some of the other creators on Haps. Lots of people in the States bringing us up to date on what's going on over there. Lots of people bringing us up on the conversation that's happening in Nigeria. Lots of interesting things, big stories going on there. And lots of Haps creators actually, at the forefront of that breaking news. So Haps has been very exciting this week. So if you've enjoyed my broadcast with John Sell today, why don't you stick around and check out Haps, because I'm sure you'll find something else that's of interest too. But John Sell, it's a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jamie. Always a pleasure, man.
Weekend, and thanks to you at home for watching. Thanks to everyone that's commented and everyone that's interacted. It's been a great Friday broadcast. I'm going to go and get my weekend started now, and I suggest you do too. We'll see you next time.